Hey guys, I'm Matt at Mr. Maple. Welcome to the Saturday Showcase.
I'm Tim. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com, and make sure you watch this video, this Saturday Showcase on Loucks Nursery.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about Loucks Nursery. Now, this was a favorite nursery of ours to go and visit. When we were in Oregon, Tim and I would go and visit Loucks. I remember in 2009 at the Maple Society meeting, several members were talking about going and visiting Dell, and Richard Bomar, who's a good friend of ours, was in that conversation. And Richard came and passed it off to us like it was like the top secret missile code. So we're like, Richard, who's going there? And Richard walks up, he puts the name of a nursery on a piece of paper, slides it over to us, and walks away like straight-faced as anything. And it was everybody's little secret hideaway that everybody liked to kind of go to, but everybody wasn't announcing. And we got in there and we were just greeted so well by Jonathan Savlich and Dell Loucks. And it's a fun place for us to reminisce on. Dell's since passed, but some of his legacy of Japanese maples are some of my favorite trees. I think you'll enjoy this little look behind Dell Loucks Nursery and some of their introductions.
Yeah, Junction City, Oregon is where their nursery was based out of.
It's actually where they filmed Animal House,
the parade scene.
The parade scene.
Yeah,
so if you drive down the road there, I'm literally driving down the road there and I'm like, it kind of looks very similar to what it did in Animal House.
Famous for two things,
right.
Dell Loucks Nursery and the parade scene
right.
On Animal House. But Dell was one of these nurserymen that was one of these people who introduced a lot of amazing plants in the nursery trade. I mean, there's some classic introductions, many that you have in your garden that Dell Loucks introduced. He found, introduced, or someone sent him and he introduced into the nursery trade. And Dell was a small operation, but he produced a lot of Japanese maples out of his nursery.
Yeah, it was more of a smaller backyard operation. I think had Dell been a huge businessman, it would be one that everybody thinks of as like almost like Talon Buckholz. Like he's a guy who's on that list of some of the top maple introducers of all times. Like he introduced 10 plus cultivars that are popular all around the world. I don't know if there's many nurseries that have as many classic hits. He would definitely be, if you look at it like songs, he would be somebody that had a lot of #1 hits, right?
He definitely would be. And when you go down this list, you'll see many of these that you have in your garden, or many you should have in your garden, and some that are a little rarer. We might even talk about that he introduced that didn't actually, make it as big in the nursery trade, but definitely should be.
So when I was the president of the North American Maple Society, I wrote an article when Dell passed, and I basically said, you might not know Dell Loucks, you may have not been to his nursery, but you know his introductions. And that's kind of the crux of it. We're going to get into a little bit of some of the trees he introduced here. There's some amazing plants that you'll see. I saw these in garden centers in Belgium. And it's like knowing the place it came from and the small family nursery that it was at. It was so cool to see some of these things that are classics, Japanese maples all around the world.
So first up on the list, we've got Akakawihime. This is a dwarf coral bark selection named and introduced at Dell Loucks Nursery. It does have a Japanese name, but Dell sometimes would do that.
Yeah.
He also introduced Benikumonosu, the red spider's web, which translates to red spider's web, but it has a Japanese name on it, but it's an introduction from Junction City, Oregon.
I'd put Dell in that class with like Harold Johnston for those early on pioneers in Japanese maples.
Definitely. They
were evaluating and naming some of these things early on. This was one of our first dwarf coral bark Japanese maples. Classic tree, very, very durable. We think of it in that 6 to 8 foot range, even in 15 years, so a little bit smaller, a companion plant to something like, similar to what you think of in the same traits with Sengokaku, but in a much smaller habit.
I know we had a lot of issue trying to grow Flagellahime outside during the winter in our zone.
Right.
I know
Maybe we'll make a top 5 plants that suck list, but Flagellahime would probably be on it. Maybe we'll make a Japanese maples not to grow showcase. I think that'll probably be our most popular video ever. Flagellahime would be on that list.
And Akakawihime has a lot in looking at with Flagellahime, but in a dwarf coral bark selection.
That's way more durable.
Way more durable. We're talking 6, 8 foot in 10, 15 years. Bright red bark during the winter, some yellow fall color, dense compact habit.
Lush green throughout the spring and summer. Underrated fall color, just like Sengokaku, golden yellow with splashes of red. Way better candidate than Sengokaku for container culture.
And I like what he did with the name with Akakawihime. I'm not sure if that actually works in Japanese, but Aka meaning deep red, Kawa meaning bark, and Hime meaning that dwarf.
Princess or dwarf, yeah.
So it's a great terminology for a red dwarf coral bark Japanese maple. And this is one that fits in a lot of people's garden where they're looking for a coral bark, but they can't have something that gets as tall as something like a Sengukaku or
Right.
Benikawa.
Now, next up on the table, you've got a tree that you've heard us talk about a lot here, and that's Acer palmatum Lillians Jewel. Now, we were actually one of the first nurseries to ever offer this. I believe we bought the very first one that Dell and Jonathan ever offered. So we went out there, we met with Dell and Jonathan, and they showed us this, and we made another trip completely back to Oregon just to talk to them and to sell us a Lillians Jewel. So we traded several trees with Jonathan for a few years. Lillians Jewel is actually named after his daughter, Lillian, and that's where the name comes from. It'd be Dell Loucks' granddaughter. And Jonathan was taking over the idea of taking over for Dell after he retired and kind of growing the nursery. An amazing plant. What this one's popular for is that neon pink on dark red coloration. And it's one of the very best versions of this, probably because it was a seedling. So it was seedling found, and that may keep that variegation in there a little stronger than a sport.
And this is one of the plants that Dell helped Jonathan learn how to stabilize. And honestly, it's one of the best stable red and pink variegation Japanese maples of the style of any Japanese maple that I've dealt with.
Right.
Love this plant. It's been one of my favorite Japanese maples. It's always, so far, it's in my top 10, and
Right.
it's always going to be in my top 10.
We've been growing it since '09, and it's still cutting edge to us. It's still one we list every time as like new and interesting, and it still feels very fresh, even though it's been around since '09. We're shooting this in 2022.
More heat tolerant than most people realize. I know Brian, he's shaking his head behind the camera and he told me before about how this plant has done so well for him in Oklahoma. I know Richard Bomar had his down in Simpsonville,
Right.
South Carolina, in a more sun situation, and it thrived and did well for him down there as well.
We were super excited to get this plant. Like I said, we'd traded Jonathan several things, and he let us get one of the very first grafts of this. Back in the day, if you've been following Mr. Maple for a long, long time, you might know that we were on eBay as the Maple Mafia. We'll make some Maple Mafia merch. We'll make some Maple Mafia t-shirts. Those would be a deep dive old school. And that was kind of a joke with Richard Bomar and Mike Wilson used to call us the Maple Mafia because we were collecting all the cultivars. But our eBay name actually was the Maple Mafia. And we would sell grafts of Lillians Jewel for auction, and it wouldn't be uncommon for 6 to 8 inch grafts of this to end up going for close to $300. I mean, this went on for several years as it was one of our rarest items. We've since popularized this one and got it out in the trade. I've shared it with Talon Buchholz and many other producers, and it's starting to get more common in the trade. I am a stickler for always telling people it is Lillians Jewel. I've actually met Lillian. She's a very fine young lady, and we want to keep that name on there. As a dad, maybe I'm particular about that because my daughters, if I name a plant after them, I don't want anybody changing it. So you'll sometimes see it sold as Little Annie's Jewel or Extravaganza. The correct name on this plant should be Lillians Jewel.
So next up, we've got Acer palmatum dissectum emerald lace.
Yeah, now this is a hitter, guys. This one I saw, in every garden center in Belgium and every garden center in the Netherlands. And I think I went there the year after I'd visited Dell, and it just blew me away, the contrast. I mean, Dell, had he marketed some of his plants and patented some of his plants, and not that he should have patented them, but the man introduced pure gold, right? And some of these plants are popular all over the world. And so it was so interesting to see plants introduced by him being sold in massive garden centers in France. And emerald lace is popular all over the world. Classic green lace leaf that goes to a very bold red in the fall. Low growing plant, but quite vigorous as well.
Now, emerald lace is one that was found by David Sabo in Charlotte, North Carolina. Then cuttings were mailed to Dell, and Dell made this plant popular all around the world. He's the one who got this to other nurseries, got this all around, and it became one of his hit introductions. It was one of our trees, if you've checked out our videos on our heat-tolerant Japanese maple series. This is one of the trees from that, and it's also one that one of our good friends, Ken Rogers, who's a maple expert down in Alabama, mentioned. It does very well for him in high heat areas. We love this plant. It gives some good red fall color, but the leaf is more dissected than almost any other green weeping lace leaf Japanese maple.
For sure. Very, very durable, very fast growing, excellent colors. If you're getting this one in shade, it gives you more of that emeraldy blue-green kind of color, and then going into that bold red in the fall. Very vigorous. It's not uncommon for this one to put on 2 to 3 feet of growth some years. Now, most of that'll be in width. It's a very slow grower in height. You can stake it up to get a desired height. Typically, this tree doesn't reach any more than 4 feet tall on its own unless you're going to stake it up past that. But it's not uncommon for it to get 6, 7 foot wide. It's going to be quite vigorous in its width, but a very nice low spreading cultivar.
Super geeky thing if you like to geek out on maples. It's an Acer palmatum subspecies palmatum if you check the seeds. Instead of a Matsumuri, like all the other lace leaves, Emerald lace and cereus are the only subspecies palmatums, which makes us think that emerald lace's origin had something along to do with Acer palmatum dissectum cereus.
Yeah, extremely similar colors and vigor to this one, but extremely different shapes.
Most definitely.
Now moving on along here, we have Benny Hoshi. Now Benny Hoshi has also been in the trade under the name Ruby Stars. I've heard that Olson of Olson's Frosted Strawberry, who was actually introduced by Dell Loucks as well, that was a cousin of Dell's. And so many of the plants they were introducing at the same time have some similar lineage there to them. So it may have been in evaluations that both were working on. I've heard people say that Ruby Stars and Benny Hoshi are separate plants, but Benny Hoshi means Ruby Stars. I can tell you with pretty good confidence they're the same plant.
And they're fantastic plants. Dell and his cousin often work together on introducing different plants, and often Dell would be someone who his cousin funneled plants to,
Right.
who then got them more into the nursery trade.
I think
like
Dell was may have been a little bit more on that naming side of things. He was very good at coming up with unique names like this, and I think sometimes he kind of came up with the marketing for some of the names.
I know Tequila Sunset was one of those.
Right.
And it was a little more unstable of a red variegated type. And there's some other ones that are out there that came through that.
Olson's Frosted Strawberry.
Yeah, that's an excellent example. And it got more and more popular because Dell got it out there to a lot of other people. Some amazing plants. Ruby Stars is one of my favorite red dwarfs though. And the reason I love this is it has that Aminum style leaf, that little bit fatter leaf, almost like a Bloodgood style, but it's much smaller. And it has more of an upright shape. So it gives you a different shape than a lot of the witch's brooms.
Yeah.
And then the yellow fall color.
It's a nice small red. I like that it gets kind of a yellow veining in the leaf, so you get that bright pinkish red color in the early spring with kind of a yellow veining inside the leaf. It's not uncommon for them to be a little more emeraldy on the older growth during the summer, but like Tim said, it brings intense golden yellow in the fall, which is a completely unique look for a small dwarf red like this. Its overall texture and color make it a must, I think, for any Japanese maple collector. It might be one of the top picks if you're going all around. I mean, all these are big hits, but...
Well, it has that ruby red spring color new growth. I like that late spring where it's that brick red with
Right.
that emerald green veining. I mean, that really just stands out and gives this plant something different from all the other red uprights. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's a dwarf,
Right.
it's dense, compact. I mean, the yellow fall color, it's a plant that I think anyone can grow. It can grow in small spaces. It's not a very wide plant. It can grow in containers. Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of my plants that I think needs to be used more and more in the landscape.
Benny Hoshi is a classic Japanese maple. It fits a lot of what people are looking for with a smaller Bloodgood type. A lot of first-time gardeners are looking for a Bloodgood, but that's going to be too large for them. And Benny Hoshi is going to bring everything they want there, but then also with this amazing surprise yellow fall color.
So next up, we've got Acer palmatum dissectum lemon lime lace. And I remember going to Dell's place, and I thought this plant was Lucky Sevens. Dell had handwritten tags, and it said 777. Well, I didn't know that. Flipped
Flip it
over
over.
was LLL for lemon lime lace.
It's the lucky number 7s. I like this one.
But this is a really cool weeping lace leaf. Has a nice spreading habit. It has some really nice yellow colored new growth and some really nice crisp yellow to orange fall color.
One thing we love to do here at our nursery is go straight to the source. So one thing we do a lot of times is we'll source our Japanese maples back to the original, and we love to get some source from our scions from some of the very first ones. And so it was really fun to actually meet with Dell and know that our original plants kind of came from him and had that lineage. Now, lemon lime lace is a great name for a Japanese maple, but it's a great trait too. You're gonna get some classic golden yellows in this one, especially in those fall months. This is gonna be a dissectum that is very delicate looking, but very durable in its nature. Makes a great candidate for container culture. And I love that its new growth kind of flushes a lemony color. Like it kind of has a little bit of that lemony-esque color over the new growth, especially in the midsummer.
Love all these plants. He had so many other introductions. I can think of Laura's Love, which is a bronze colored one.
Excellent lace leaf Japanese maple.
Has a little more wide spreading leaf to it, like the leaf on the lace leaf spreads out a little bit.
You mentioned that Tequila Sunset. That was an excellent plant. Tequila Sunset was a brick on kind of yellow. It's a very hard one to keep variegated. It would be highly sought after if it was very stable. I remember U of O being in that line too. It was University of Oregon, but it was a lime green on dark green variegation that was quite popular. Did prove to be heavily unstable though on that one as well.
Now, the other one that I really liked from him was Cotton Candy.
Oh, that's a great one.
We got that the same time we got Lillian's Jewel from him. And that is just, it puts out tons of pink new growth that look like cotton candy that maturing to white. That one is, when we have that one available, it doesn't last very long. Right. And it's one that I love. And we're gonna have to get more in production here at MrMaple. That's one that I realize right now we need to have up here
Yeah.
on the table from having at the nursery, and we're currently out of it.
So I hope you like this showcase on Dell Loucks. Shout out to Jonathan Savlich, Lillian, and the whole Loucks family. We really appreciate the introductions that Dell made here. Also, Dell's dwarf one we didn't mention, that's a Circinatum. We could keep going. There's probably a list of 10 more. This is no means a comprehensive list, but we wanted to kind of hop on here on our Saturday showcase and pay homage to a nursery that we love to visit. It was a real fun place for us. I know when it was there, it was always something that was new and exciting, and it really inspired our nursery, our evaluation process a lot here.
And the thing I loved about his nursery is it was a lot like our nursery. He tried getting a lot of different types of varieties. He didn't stick to just producing Crimson Queen and Tamukiyama and Bloodgood. He went through and made sure that he had a full listing of a huge assortment of Japanese maples. And I know that had an influence on us. We were already collecting, but he helped popularize so many Japanese maples. He helped us get a hold of Japanese maples that we've since tried to make more and more popular as well.
And I also think you can see that in a lot of their introductions. They're a diverse mix, but each thing is unique unto itself. It's a very good lineup. I mentioned that with Red Maple Nurseries, but you can definitely see that in Dell Loucks' collection as well, is that he had something that checked each category, each box. There's a diversity of kind here. We'll have to put together a Dell Loucks garden. Maybe we can start to facilitate some of our gardens, like the Buckholtz garden, the Dell Loucks garden, you know, and we could kind of play with some of those collections that way. But we want to present some of this to you in a unique way on these Saturday showcases. Today, again, today's highlight is Dell Loucks and Dell Loucks Nursery introductions. And these are just a few of our favorites. There's a whole list there. And you can definitely find these coming to a Mr. Maple near you. So be signing up for those 10 at 10 emails, because a lot of these items, if they're not in stock, we'll be returning first on those 10 at 10s.
Thank you all for watching this video. If you like these Saturday showcases, make sure to check out every Saturday, because we've got more showcases every Saturday. We've now got scheduled programming coming on every single Saturday where we try to hit something like this, where we focus on Japanese maples in a unique way, bring them to you so you can learn some of the history behind some of these plants. Check out our podcast. We're doing that on Sundays now. And we've got some cool programming, so make sure you're subscribed to the Mr. Maple Show on YouTube.
Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.